Welcome to the Content Podcast, conversations with Silicon Valley's creatives. I'm Daniel Garcia, your host and the cultivator of Content Magazine, published by SV Creates.
Hello.
Today we talk with Ato Walker. He's an activist, humorist, host, and emcee. Hey Ato, how you doing? This is Daniel.
Hey, how's it going, man? How's everything?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing with the shelter in place? And I know you have a young son. How's that all going?
Well, shelter in place has affected me and my family deeply, but I'm an essential worker, so I work in building maintenance for my day job. So I haven't had a day off
Oh, wow.
this whole time. So it's been a lot of coming into work and dealing with COVID protocol, dealing with the changing orders of Santa Clara County with this, that, and the other, and
Yeah.
putting a lot of signs up and making sure people are wearing their mask and making sure that people are staying 6 feet apart in all areas in all our buildings.
Yeah.
It sucks in general because people can't go to the gym and all these other different things and use our community spaces. So it's been interesting, I would say the least.
Yeah.
But three things that I've learned in the pandemic: leaks don't stop, emergencies don't stop,
Right.
life does go on.
Yeah.
So you can't be mad about life going on and things moving the way they need to move. So
Yeah. It's kind of weird. I mean, in some ways, especially in the beginning, like things kind of slow down, but at the same time, it didn't really kind of slow down. Like it felt like it was just a new added kind of a different type of tension and pressure, right?
yeah, I mean, the thing that's scary about the pandemic is like all the stuff that we don't know, right? But
Yeah.
we do know people get sick,
Yeah.
and we do know people, have complications from it and stuff like that. I just wish, the previous administration and anyone and everyone involved in that place, dealt with it more realistically and didn't
Yeah.
use it as an opportunity to, make it like a political pawn.
Yeah.
And that would
Yeah.
have saved lives. It would have saved lives if we didn't focus on, whether or not it came from China. If we had a focus on, this disease has a big impact on
Right.
everyone.
Yeah.
Let's do something.
Right.
Like you would think that our humanness. I'm sorry, I'm getting text messages. I should
And
turn my phone on silent. Um, um, I get a good morning text from a few people, so that was one of them.
oh,
Good
that's good.
morning. So anyway,
That's nice.
it's yeah, isn't it nice, right? But also like one of the things that I realized in the pandemic is like you find out who your friends are.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't know who your friends were before the pandemic, you definitely found out. You found out who's going to call and check on you. You found out who's going to show up and bring soup if you need it. You're going to find out.
Yeah.
Uh, you're going to find out if the
Who's got your
person you
back?
married is actually cool because you actually have to spend time with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you find out a lot of stuff about. I found out a lot of stuff about myself that I didn't know. Like I can be really calm. I'm a calm kind of dude. Like
Yeah.
I don't need. I don't have a lot of needs in life. All
Right.
I need
Yeah.
is good food and a laugh every couple days, and I'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
good. Yeah. So now, yeah, speaking about laughing, so you've been part of, well, you're a humorist or a comedian,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Which would you prefer to say? Which is the
I
and
like to use the word humorous because Mark Twain used it, and that's the only reason. Like
okay.
I've attached myself to that because I think being a person who's in the lexicon who wants to contribute laughter to people, you can do that in many forms and fashions.
Right.
And I like old fashioned words. I like uh, the idea of walking around and having this self-imposed title of humorist to
Yeah.
people, because like, hey, who else can walk around and say that but a comedian? Well, I'm
Right.
not a comedian. I'm a humorist.
Well,
So
it seems like it makes it a little broader, right? I mean, when you hear the
it is.
word comedian, you kind of just think someone who tells jokes, stands up there, but a humorist, that means someone who's probably, it's a little broader, right? You can go from commentary on society and life
Yeah,
to just saying things wittily, how do you,
with
witfully?
wit, with wit,
With wit.
uh,
Yeah.
yes, I like to whittle the sticks. That's what I do. I whittle
Yeah.
things down to its core essence.
Yeah.
No,
So
I mean that's
when did you get started? Kind of like when did you start to get the bug for comedy and humoristing?
okay. So remember the economic crisis of 2008?
Yeah.
At that time. Before that, I had worked as a professional in nonprofits.
Hmm.
I'll mention them now. City Year, I
Yeah.
worked for them, and then I also worked for a middle school program. I forgot the name. I don't know why I just did right now. I'm blanked on it, but I worked for a middle school program, and then I worked for Public Allies. And
Yeah.
so,
It
in
was
working for those,
wasn't it
yeah,
City Year? Was it City Year that brought you up here? Is that how you came to San Jose?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, City Year was how I got to the Bay Area. Like
Yeah.
before City Year, I didn't even know San Jose existed as a city.
Not even you really hadn't even heard the sharks or earthquakes or
I
anything like
heard
that.
of the Sharks,
Yeah.
but I'm from Pasadena, and being from Pasadena or the LA basin, you kind of get sucked in and absorbed in the Pasadena, LA, the LA
Yeah.
basin
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
life experience. And um, much to Southern California's credit, it's hard to escape the fog of the smog there. So, um,
Yeah.
and that pertains to a lot of different things, but I think moving up here and like being in the Bay Area and stuff like that. My grandmother lived in Vallejo, and my mom is from Vallejo, so I
Mhm.
did have a Bay Area connection, and
Yeah.
so I underestimated how far Vallejo was and all that stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
from San Jose. So when I got here, I was just like, oh, I thought I was going to be near San Francisco,
Right.
and they were like, no, San Francisco is an hour away, and I was like, an hour? Oh, okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's cool. An hour is just fine. Because
Yeah, yeah.
because to me, I find it weird. One of the things that I find really weird when I'm talking to people from San Jose or from the Bay Area is that they think 5 minutes down the street is kind of far, and I'm
Right.
like, that's far to you? Like
Yeah,
you
if
have
you're
no
from
idea
LA.
what
Yeah.
you have no idea what being on the freeway all day and on a
Yeah.
405 or the 110 or any of the freeways you
Yeah,
could
totally.
possibly be stuck on all day. Like that
Yeah.
happens in LA. So I was like, tripping off of how far things were. So it was great. San Jose's great.
Yeah, cool. So the economic crash of 2008, that kind of how did that spark you into comedy?
So I spent 18 months on unemployment. And
Good.
during that time, I was able to rediscover my youth, or actually have a youth as a person, because before that, working in nonprofits and stuff like that, there wasn't lots of avenues for me to blow off steam or like have friends because you're working 70 to 80-hour weeks and you're
Yeah.
tired all the time.
Yeah.
And then when I didn't have all that to do, I was kind of looking for something to do. And uh, sleeping all day was great during my unemployment period, and I got very used to doing that. And then I was trying to find something to do like at night. I had some forays into poetry before that. I had done a little bit of pirate radio hosting before that, and
Yeah.
my thought process was, hey, what could I do to kind of what could I do that is within my scope of who I am, that would help me get to where it is I wanted to go in my life, I guess, or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. And I thought, hey, I'll become a comedian. And
Yeah.
when when people approach becoming a comedian, one of the things that you um, want when you start is instant fame.
Right. Yeah.
Instant fame and success, and it doesn't work that way in comedy. It
Yeah.
it it really doesn't. Comedy is one of those things. Even if you do get instant success, it's really hard to maintain. And
Yeah.
so, uh, I started off a little small here and there, and then I started a open mic at the Britannia Arms in downtown San Jose
Yeah.
every other week on a Monday,
Oh, okay.
and that show had 4.5 years of success,
Yeah.
and then we moved on to the Caravan Lounge, and
Yeah.
the Caravan Lounge until the pandemic was running. We were working on our 6th year,
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
um,
What was it
so
like the first time you walked up to the mic to do a set?
so this is a funny story. I promise you, it's a funny story
Okay.
because um, my first gig was at the San Jose Improv.
Okay.
My
That's a
very
pretty
first
big.
gig.
Yeah,
My
that's
very
cool.
first gig. And because I had done so much work in working in community, and I felt myself as being like a trainer, because I did a lot of trainings for both Public Allies and for City Year. It was one of my roles was their training manager over at City Year, and then when I was at Public Allies, part of the role meant that we developed stuff for
Yeah.
trainings and things like that. And so I had that opportunity. So I thought, like, I'll just come up with it, and I'll come up with some writing. And I wrote some jokes and I put it all together. And then I went on this campaign around my community and I went and found all the comedians that are from San Jose. So I talked to this guy Butch Escobar. I talked to this guy Pete Munoz. I
Mm.
talked to this lady Colleen Watson, and I basically kind of interviewed them all and talked to them about what comedy is in San Jose and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
um, in conversations with Butch, he was having this show with this guy named Al Gonzalez at the San Jose Improv called Unfiltered Underground, and
Oh, cool.
it's what is described as a bringer show. So I didn't know any of this at the time.
Yeah.
And so uh,
What is a
Butch
bringer
called me.
show? What's that mean, real quick, to take a sidebar?
Uh,
Bringer show. Does that mean you bring a comedian friend or something?
no, no, a bringer show is when new people in comedy are just getting into comedy, and the people running the show convince these new young puppy
Okay.
comics to bring all their friends to the show,
Okay. Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
can fill out their audience.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so, so, so I was one of those puppy comics who were like, "Oh, I'm doing my first show at the Improv," and I invited all my friends. Now, of course, all my friends show up.
Yeah.
Of course, all of my people that I worked with in community through Public Allies and stuff like that, and through City Year, and some of my, all of those people showed up,
Yeah.
and I had like maybe 40 or 50 people there just to see me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I get there, I find out from one of my friends. I find out from the guy who put me on the show. Oh, he didn't even know that Al Gonzalez, when I showed up, didn't even know I was on the show. And so
Oh, okay.
then there was like, oh, this last minute ad thing, and then they put me first.
Okay.
So
Opening
I
act.
wasn't, yeah, I wasn't necessarily prepared to go first, but like I wasn't prepared. Period.
Yeah, right? Yeah. How
Because
well
I
can you be prepared, like, the first time, you know what I
no,
mean? But yeah.
no. No,
Yeah.
and I remember that night there was at least 300 people there, or maybe more, and they call me out, and I go out on stage, and I have my notebook with me, because of course I
Yeah.
need notes because I've never done comedy before,
Yeah.
and I get up there and I start telling jokes, and then I fumble a little bit, and then I bust out my notes and I read a couple things, and then I ditch the notes, and then I start like telling another story, and the next thing I know, my time is up,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then I got to get off stage.
Yeah.
And now, for my first time, I would say I definitely bombed. I definitely bombed because I didn't hear anything from anybody. I think
Right.
I heard a couple laughs, but I don't really remember them or anything. It wasn't like anything, And
Yeah.
so I'm hanging out with my friends at Cinnabar. Rest in peace, Cinnabar. Sorry, you don't exist anymore
Yeah.
as of right now. But I was hanging out with one of my friends at Cinnabar, and we were kind of getting wasted. And he basically says to me, "You know what? You know what? I'm glad you did comedy tonight. I'm glad you did comedy tonight. I think you got stage presence. I think you can make a future of yourself with this. But bro, you suck."
That's good, man. It's good to have that honest feedback, though, right?
Right. And so ever since then, it's like I caught that bug. It's like I just didn't want to suck again. I
Yeah.
didn't want to be in front of that many people and have everybody say congrats and then like walk away shaking their head.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. Like A
Um,
for effort, but yeah,
bruh. So, it was a sad start in a way, but then, I got the opportunity at the Britannia, Arms, and then I was able to develop my comedy there, and then moving on to host the Caravan, like I was able to develop my comedy there as well. And so
yeah,
I'm in a
yeah.
good place right now. Like I feel well versed and I'm not scared anymore or like
Right.
have that nervousness or anything. And I've done a lot of fun things with comedy,
Yeah.
including hosting for 5 years straight uh, the the music in the park.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
For, like,
like
the Metro Music Downtown Association, the Music in the Park
yep,
that like at
yep.
Cesar Chavez and
I did all of the shows ever since Ozomatli came back.
yeah.
Uh, Ozomatli came back and did a big show where it was like a ticketed and stuff like that. If
Mhm.
you like,
Yeah,
I would say 2014 or
yeah.
15.
Something around there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
what's that
yeah.
like when you're doing were you emceeing
The
it, or
summer of 2013. Yeah,
were you supposed to do
yeah.
comedy as well? Kind of like, or was it more kinda emceeing?
It was just more in scene. Like I was just doing that stuff. They never really asked me to do comedy. I was just doing announcements and stuff. But
Yeah.
like I got that gig because somebody saw me doing comedy somewhere, either at the Britannia Arms, I think. Um, and do you remember? Do you know who was it? Who was it? Who was it?
Probably
I
Amy
think
Anderson.
Amy Anderson,
Yeah.
and she used to work for the San Jose Jazz Festival. Jackie Cage.
Oh,
So
yeah, yeah,
Jackie Cage linked me with Amy, and then
yeah,
Amy hooked me up with the gig, and then
yeah,
and
totally.
then from there, I got to host some. I got to host the Gordon Beer stage
Yeah,
at the
cool.
San Jose Jazz Festival. I got to do a bunch of stuff, in community because of that. Like Sofa Festival. I'm doing shows with Mike over there.
Yeah, yeah,
Working with Mike McGee there. So like, yeah, it's like all that stuff permeates.
yeah, yeah, that's cool. So then what would you say though, how would you describe kinda like your humor? What do you think it is? What kind of, style genre would you say?
Whatever's going on for a black man right now.
Okay, alright, alright.
I mean, I think that would be like the best way to describe it. I think I stay in the moment a lot. I do have some like set jokes, but a lot of it is about my life experience
Yeah,
and where I come from and why I make the decisions that I do.
yeah,
So I think I'm challenged by a lot of things in the world,
yeah,
especially colonialism and all the impacts of it.
yeah,
So sometimes my jokes focus on that, and other times, relationships. I've dealt with some very hard things with relationships myself, and what they look like, and what people can experience in them.
yeah,
And yeah, when I'm talking about political stuff and public policy stuff, it's very clear. Like these are the things we have issues with,
yeah,
and finding a fun way to connect that for the audience. So I think
yeah,
when I'm doing my comedy, it's kind of, hey, walk a day of life in my shoes and
right.
see the things the way I see them for a moment.
Yeah. So then do you see that, I mean, and I know when we interviewed you a while ago in the magazine when Diane did that, it was pretty cool. Um, but like, the role, especially as a black person in comedy, do you see it? It's kind of a way to help change and shape culture and hopefully expose some of like the racism and white privilege stuff. Is that kind of part of your kind of mission in your comedy, or is that just kind of outflows because you're living in it?
I think it's two things. I think because of my experience, because of who my mother is, because of the things that I've done in my life, of course, I have this lens of yes, I want the best for all people,
Hmm.
and but we do need to solve this this internal problem the United
Yeah,
States has when it comes to how we deal with race
yeah,
or how do we deal with culture and people correctly?
yeah,
I won't even say as a race thing because we need to get off of that. We don't deal with culture and people correctly because
yeah,
we have systematic white supremacy that cast this this overbearing shadow over everything
yeah,
that um, America has accomplished.
yeah,
It's our dark past that we're unwilling to acknowledge and or even and celebrate. It'd be different. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah, yeah,
it'd be. I would love for us to get to a place like they are in Australia, where they have a day where they spend the whole day honoring the contributions of the Aboriginal community there
yeah,
and apologizing to them for the way that they were treated.
yeah,
Um, but we don't have that sense of self here in
yeah,
America. Uh, we're still denying
yeah.
the existence of white supremacy's existence.
Right. It's
So
crazy the
it
conversations that I'm, having with people, even, especially because last summer with the protests and everything that were very much needed. But um, just, yeah, the general white and upper white middle class kind of like perspective is that, well, that was all resolved with Martin Luther King Jr., right?
and it wasn't. It was
Yeah.
barely brought up. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? It
Well,
was
that's the thing, and
brought
I
up.
always ask the first thing I ask him is like, and then yeah, that's right, like, and what happened to him? You know?
He was
When
murdered,
right, exactly.
and then things fell silent because he was murdered, because Medgar Edwards was murdered, because Malcolm X was
Yeah,
murdered. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? All those people that were the core of the leadership were either murdered or nullified.
right,
And then when young people were like, "Yo, they're murdering all of our leaders.
right.
Let's go pick up guns and protect ourselves." Then they went out and murdered those kids too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry,
No,
I could,
no.
it
No,
just,
I it's important, yeah.
it's just that's the people don't understand or because of white supremacy, the middle class white person doesn't understand what it means to have that happen in their community because
Yeah,
it never has.
right. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing is you don't see it because you've never experienced it, you've never engaged with it, therefore it doesn't exist, right?
And if something like that does happen in the white community, it's usually because that white person supported a person of color,
Right, 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 yeah, yeah,
supported, worked on, partnered with, and that person was murdered because they helped out. And so then that scares all the other
yeah,
middle class white folks into saying, well, fuck that. I ain't helping.
yeah, yeah. It's
I
crazy,
hate to be I hate to
it
be crass, but that's what happens.
yeah. So then what is the role overall then, even on the small kind of like, micro thing of San Jose's community, the role that comedy has in helping change culture?
Well,
I mean, it's yeah,
that's what comedy's role has always been. It's always been, hey, look, you guys, this is a problem.
yeah,
It's always been a warning, even for jesters in the king's court. The jester's job was to make fun of what's going on, to create theater out of what's going on,
yeah,
and so that there is some, so that the king could have some social awareness of
yeah,
what's going on, and and if we don't have that social awareness, then how can we relate and how can we relate to anyone? How can we uh, jive? How can we dance? How could we have joy? Because we have
yeah,
to laugh at the absurd shit
yeah,
that goes down. Because
yeah,
I mean, come on. Like, we saw the lady at the yogurt shop who spit on the baby.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Crazy. Yeah.
that was mad crazy. But
Yeah.
I remember laughing my ass off because it's like, this is literally the worst thing that a person could do to a child in
Yeah.
a public place, to a
Yeah.
child, and that woman's a teacher.
Yeah. Crazy.
Do you understand how
Yeah.
like what? Like,
Yeah.
what was this woman thinking? Why was she even that upset? And these are all the things that you're like, oh my god. And
Yeah.
so, and like when comedians joke about it, and when they make jokes about it, and like you see it on the national news, like, yeah, a lot of that jokes come from the place of like, what was this lady thinking? And then you do the yes and thing, and then you come up with something, and
Yeah.
that's where the joke is. And we all have to laugh at it because if we look into it deeply, we know this woman is straight up racist. We know that she was targeting that kid. She's targeting a baby. You know that she was asked to put her mask on and she didn't feel like she needed to because there's no way that she could
Right.
ever catch a disease only dirty people from
Right.
from
Yeah.
China get. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So all of all these anti-maskers right now, all these people walking around spreading it in their own community, like
Yeah.
it's because they feel like they're untouchable because they have some deep sense of entitlement that comes from what? The color of
Right.
their skin?
Right.
Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
Or their religious beliefs? Like, I don't care what I know people are religious and stuff like that, but that does not religion does not prevent you from getting
Yeah.
sick.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Well, I guess some religions believe that, but they're all dying
Even the
out.
even the religions that believe that have been in hospitals with their babies and watched them die.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth. And if your religion, if you're one of those people with those religions and you believe that, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're gonna get sick.
Yeah. There's some reality there that eventually hits you. Yeah. So yeah, I guess so. It must be difficult though. I mean, to craft. I'm trying to think like you take something that's like whatever the situation is, something that's so heinous, right? There's a laugh
Mm.
that you get out of the uncomfortableness, right? And
Uh,
then there's a laugh at the absurdity, and then there's the laugh because it was the absurdity, the craziness, and it was said in such a humorous way, right? So
yeah.
I mean, like, how do you craft something like that? Like, what if like, how do you? I don't know. It baffles me.
You,
That,
it's crafted from the truth, right? So I
yeah.
have a joke that I always tell in most of my shows. I'll tell it to you now. I'll say it to you now. You've probably heard this joke. You've heard me say it before, but it basically goes: white people are good at three things.
Okay.
White people are good at three things: uh,
Okay.
genocide, oppression, and not giving a fuck about those two things.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. It makes me uncomfortable. It's got truth, right? Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
And it's so true that I've been in audiences where they're all white people and they bust up,
Right. Right.
right? I did
But
that. I
they
did
could
that.
even be laughing though with the little crazy, absurd, sadistic sense of pride, though, right?
That is
Unconsciously.
that is also true. That
Yeah.
also can happen.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, right? It is my job as a comedian to point out the obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's
then,
what it is.
and I guess the thing is like when you start to hear that message enough, and it with the barrier broken down because of comedy, then
Mhm.
maybe it'll start to get in your head and some action will change, right?
I don't know because for people
Yeah.
to take for people to take actual action to
Yeah.
actually get in the street and risk their lives.
Yeah. Takes
We're
a
talking
lot.
about risking your lives in front of the cops, like all these young people did this past summer.
Yeah.
When it comes to the George Floyd situation and all those situations that we've
Yeah.
experienced. I've been to marches. I've been marching since I was
Yeah.
10 years old, and I
Yeah.
could tell you all the times that I've had to go out in my own community and speak out against the things that happen. There is a huge risk involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
The police will show up and the
Yeah.
police will throw tear gas, the police will throw rubber bullets, and that's been happening, since the Dr. King era.
Yeah. Yeah.
It hasn't changed. We saw what happened with, when they tried to get the stop the Keystone Pipeline. We saw what they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Crazy
so
world.
the argument isn't will this, uh, will seeing this invoke change? No, it doesn't invoke the necessity of change until it hits your front door.
Totally. Yeah. Nobody makes
Until
any change are so until they perceive that they need it, right? Or they
Yeah,
have to
like look
have it.
what happened to Derek Sanderling. For all intents and purposes, wonderful human being, wonderful person, doing the right thing out there. And that cop that shot him didn't know what he was doing.
Mm.
Clearly, he doesn't know how to aim. But beyond that, like the situation wasn't necessary. No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Did it bring attention to, hey, we don't need armed, we don't need that when it's a peaceful protest.
All right.
We don't need tear gas when it's a peaceful protest. We don't need guys with riot gear standing out in front when it's a peaceful protest. We don't need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only people that escalated that situation were the cops.
Yeah. Out of
So,
fear. Yeah.
out of fear of what? Systemic racism.
Yeah.
Because it exists, because they are taught to fear people of color, because they're taught to approach the situation with violence first
Yeah.
instead of understanding or compassion.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
It's crazy. I mean, and the sad thing is how long this has been going on and continues going on, the continued denial. And I just rewatched a little while ago Chris Rock's, I don't know, his big special he did. I think it was like back in the 80s or maybe it was 90s. I forget. But he tells this incredible, great, hilarious story. It's all set up, right? About this guy and the woman, and he's running home, but he's being chased by the cops and he gets shot in the driveway, right? And it's hilarious. I mean, the way he tells it, right?
yeah.
But this is still like I think it's got to be late 80s. I don't know. I can't remember my comedian timelines.
Was
But
it was
the thing
it
is,
was it the one with the Marion Barry joke?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
know.
yeah.
It was his first special. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
thing is that now you listen to that with today's ears, you're especially as a white person or like, Latino white person, right? And this is like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, like this is, this black culture, he's putting this out here, the reality of what was going on with black culture without any, the white suburbans and upper class realizing it, right? But what he's describing is the message that's been trying to get out there for years. And this is 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? And it's so, I don't know, I just found it fascinating because the same problem's happening today.
yeah.
Yeah. So how do you, yeah. So are you motivated? I guess then you're motivated out of frustration. And then that frustration is to find the humor to keep you from being overwhelmed. I mean,
I don't know if it's frustration. I think it's PTSD. To be honest with you, I think
oh
like
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think I don't know if it's the motivation, but it's just like the things that the things that the black community experiences on a daily basis is genuinely absurd.
yeah.
Like the other day, I heard from one of the people. I heard from one of my coworkers that someone in HR perceives my emails to be angry when I send them. They perceive my emails
Right,
when I send them to HR when I question things. This only happens when I question them about something.
right,
But
right.
that my email comes off as aggressive and mean and angry.
That's crazy.
So wait, what?
You're a teddy bear. Don't they know that?
I, They don't know me, right? I mean, clearly, HR doesn't know anybody, right? But even though their job is called human resources, they know nobody that works for the
Right.
company.
Right.
But do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's what was said to me about who I am as a black man about my
Right.
email.
Right. Right.
And I don't have any intention or any like, I'm gonna be angry on this email. Like I don't send my emails with that kind of
All
like how
caps.
how yeah, how do you send an angry email at work? Like isn't that like a fireable offense or something? I don't know. But like you perceive my emails to be angry and I need to modify my tone? I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
crazy. You got to put
It's
more emojis of flowers in there, I guess.
something.
Yeah.
So this is the thing, like like on email, like there's no way you can interpret someone else's intention. It's just is what it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so for me, like I just want my, I just ask the question. It's like, hey, how come blah 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 blah, and I can't say that.
Yeah. The only thing, yeah, that isn't it. It's so crazy, especially in written communication, right? How you can
Mhm.
interpret things unless there was some word, unless you had said or someone said in it, I am very upset, right? At this. What's the problem, right? This makes me angry, I don't know, unless you dropped, someone was dropping F bombs and other stuff in it. Like, yeah, it'd
All
be
of this is
interesting.
my point. All of
Yeah,
this is my point.
totally.
And so if you're a comedian, your job is to point out the absurdity of that, right? I can
Yeah,
go on and on about this email situation, like how, why, blah, blah, blah. And
right.
you'll laugh and you'll laugh and you'll laugh and you'll laugh. And like, because it is fucking, I hate the cuss, but I love the cuss. But like, it's, it's,
Bizarre. Yeah,
it's the absurdity of that as well. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Well, it's the absurdity of that in general that we're
yeah,
all dealing with it. We're all dealing with it on a daily basis. And the white people that are benefiting from the privilege of being who they are
yeah,
all the time, um, think it's think it's think it's oh hey wonderful. It's oh it's just what's due to me
yeah,
because I
yeah.
exist.
Right. Manifest
And
destiny.
oh yeah, manifest. It's I deserve it because it's my God given right.
Yeah,
When
so I
you
could take it.
when
Yeah,
for all intents and purposes, no, no,
yeah,
no. That
yeah,
false
yeah,
and self entitlement does not let you walk into Target without your mask on.
yeah,
The manager, who is also a white person, is gonna be like, "No, you can't come in here," and then
yeah,
you're gonna get mad, and then we're gonna see funny videos.
yeah. Right. Then they're gonna stand out front with guns because they can't buy ice cream without wearing a mask.
Yeah, but all
Yeah,
you have, if you really want ice cream, what you gonna do? Put your mask on and go buy ice cream.
yeah. So, yeah, that's awesome. We could talk probably for time, but I have to, keep this short because listeners have, short
Yeah,
attention spans.
of
But
course.
talk to me a little bit about the San Jose scene, the San Jose comedy scene. What's your kind of intake or take on that since you've been part of hosting shows? How's the scene in the South Bay pre-COVID, of course?
Pre-COVID, like I think, like South Bay, I think we're still on a precipice of getting some, well-deserved shine. But we've had a
Mhm.
lot of comedians that have found success in New York and LA and other areas because of the work that they've done out here in the Bay Area in general and in San Jose.
Yeah,
So the real next level to it is how do we find an opportunity to be innovative in the process and then from that innovation find a way to be successful
yeah,
uh, and so that's kind of what the process is for us now. I think uh, we have to find some ways um, to demonstrate that there's fun and exciting new ways to do things with comedy. And so
yeah,
I think San Jose is about due for that right now. We're due for some type of demonstration of this is how you could take it to the next level. And
Yeah.
so that's what we want, and I think that's what we're going to get, and it's going to be the future is bright because even right now you see things like the online
Hmm.
you see the Zoom stuff,
Yeah.
that started the Zoom comedy, in my opinion, started from Bay Area comics trying to figure out a way of like, oh snap, like what are we gonna do now? We can't do venues. Let's go to Zoom. I didn't
Yeah.
even know what Zoom was until a comic introduced it to me. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, because they were using it at their job, of course, right? Because
Yeah.
Zoom is one of those things, and it became wildly popular amongst comedians and people doing performances throughout, and it's became a vehicle of all types of interviews and things like that. We wouldn't have been able to see without this particular service. Even
Yeah.
though Google always had Google Meet,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
it wasn't as
Cisco has WebEx, and yeah. Yeah.
it wasn't as accessible as Zoom was, clearly,
Yeah.
and it wasn't as easy to use as Zoom, clearly. So obviously, we have it within us to innovate, and so let's figure out how we can innovate further with comedy. In my
Yeah. Yeah. So is San Jose on the scene? So if I'm a comic and I live in, I don't know, I can't think, Waco, Texas, and I'm trying to get out there and workshop stuff, and um, is San Jose on the spot of like I'm going to jump in my wagon and I'm going to drive around the country and I'm going to do different venues? Would people stop in San Jose thinking, okay, this is a good place? They got to. I'm just curious about that part of the scene because you always hear these comedians who've made it. Like, I drove all over the country every night. Is San Jose kind of like on the stop?
Yeah, San Jose. We have the largest improv. Um,
Okay.
we have the largest improv, I think, in the nation in terms of how many seats.
Yeah.
And let's talk about who's sold out at the San Jose Improv. Joe Coy has
Right.
sold out some of his
Multiple times. Yeah.
first shows. Some of his first sellout shows happened at the San Jose Improv.
Yeah.
Or let's talk about Felipe Esparza,
Hmm.
sells out here all the time.
Yeah.
Back in his heyday, Carlos Mencia selling out all the time.
Yeah.
Pablo Francisco selling out all the time. So
Yeah.
we have
There's a market. Yeah.
Angela Johnson, who's
Yeah.
from San Jose,
Yeah. Yeah.
from the town, got her start off of YouTube
Yeah.
from San Jose.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So we have that big venue for a reason because there's people out here who want to see comedy and see it done well,
Yeah.
and uh, we've had a lot of good history here that people don't know about. Robin Williams, we have Ellen DeGeneres, we have all these different people that have done Rooster Teas and Punchline and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's within the area, but we
Yeah.
do have a lot of comedy history here. And
Yeah.
so, why not take advantage of it?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So then what's next for you, Mr. Walker? What's your plans with comedy and career and your just your
Well,
life?
first things first, get a website. so,
Okay.
so I'm working on that. This whole time I've done comedy, haven't had a website.
All
So,
right. Yeah.
upon reflection, during my COVID reflection period, which I will always refer to it as my COVID reflection period,
Right. Yeah.
um, I've thought about like, yeah, where do I really want to be with comedy, And
Yeah.
I've always done it as like this fun thing to do, and I've always, I've had my some modicum of success, but I haven't done anything to promote myself. I haven't
Yeah.
done anything to show people the different shows that I've actually done. I don't have a listing of my comedy success stories.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I gotta get my website
Yeah.
together,
You got to get on that. Yeah. Yeah.
and then from there, I'm working on a podcast with my friend PX, called the
Cool.
Co-parent Trap. I want to rebrand and revamp that, but it's basically me and her have co-parenting relationships, and
Yeah.
we're in relationships with people, and there's a bunch of stuff with that in the pandemic, and it was like an idea that we had a long time ago, but it's like, hey, let's take action on these things.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of that. And then I kind of want to do my own personal blog and and personal blog and podcast myself, and
Yeah.
then from there it's just figuring out what we're going to do with the shows. We still have things to
Yeah.
figure out with the
Is
Caravan
the
Lounge.
caravan going to be coming back
Yeah, yeah, I think
online
so. Yeah,
after?
we're gonna have it come back, and I think we're gonna find a way for it to exist in the ether, you know. So
Yeah.
working on those things and making sure that all that stuff comes out polished, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and so that those are the things that we're working on, and some other new stuff that I can't talk about yet.
Oh,
But
cool.
when you see it, you will see it, you know. So
Yeah, I'll see it on your website.
yeah, you'll see it on my website, which I don't have a domain name yet, and I can't even tell you because I haven't spent the money on GoDaddy yet. But
Something.com.
something with my name in it. It'll
Yeah,
happen.
you can find it at something.com pretty soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But for now, everybody can hit me up on my Instagram, Mr. Ato Walker.
Yeah.
I kind of filter. I do most of the things that I do is advertise on Instagram, and then
Yeah.
I'll get copy and post it onto Facebook, of course. But
Yeah.
you can find me at Mr. Ato Walker. That's the most accessible place
Yeah.
on Instagram for me. I like Instagram. I don't like Twitter, even though Twitter is fun to write an essay. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's fun to
I
write an
still have
essay,
that.
but do it 240 characters at a time. So.
Yeah. 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 Cool. Well, awesome, man. Well, I'm excited to see that stuff coming up, especially the
Yeah.
the things you can't talk about. So mysterious.
Yeah,
um,
mysterious. Yeah, me and Michael are working on something, and so he told me, "Don't talk about it with anyone without me." So I'm like, "All
yeah.
right,
Okay.
I gotta adhere to that rule." So I'll make sure to do that, and so
Good.
he knows what
I'll get him on my podcast next week, and then he'll tell me what it is, and he'll be like, "What?"
Oh,
Yeah. No. No. Cool, man. Well, hey, thank you for taking the time to talk to
yeah,
us. I really appreciate what you've been doing for the comedy scene, and then using your comedy even to try to help shape culture for a better place for us.
yeah. Why not? You know, that's what we're all here for. If we're not trying to do better, then what are we doing?
That's right. Cool. All right, man. Well, thank you, and I hope to see you out in public soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Yeah. Talk to you later. Bye. Follow Ato on his Instagram at Mr. Ato Walker. Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast. Follow us on social media at Content Mag. Visit our website to become a member and help us to continue to tell the stories of the local creatives. This episode's music is Time Alone by Mild Monk. Follow him on Spotify and also on his Instagram at Mild Monk Music.